Lieutenant Arik Ven had always believed the stars would give him freedom. On Earth, the endless rules, the tight laws, and the rigid chains of the central authority had left him restless. People were told when to eat, where to live, what jobs they could take, and even who they could love. It was a life without choice, a life without breath, so he escaped. Joining the fleet had not been easy. Training had been brutal, and the void of space was lonelier than he had imagined. But for Arik, every long patrol, every mechanical repair, every silent night drifting in orbit around some barren rock was worth it, because here at least he chose. He chose his missions, his friends, and his direction. Freedom lived in his hands, or so he thought. That morning began like any other. The station lights flickered from blue to white, signaling the shift change. Arik rubbed his tired eyes, pulled on his gray uniform, and walked toward the mess hall. Around him, hundreds of humans and aliens mixed together, sharing the same space under the flag of the Galactic Union. He liked the variety. Some aliens were tall with insect-like limbs, others short and round with bright feathers. A few had scales that shimmered like jewels. He often thought, this is what freedom looks like, so many different lives, all in one place. But as he stepped into the mess hall, the station's announcement system crackled to life. Lieutenant Arik Ven, report to Administration Sector 7. Immediate. Arik froze mid-step. Forks clinked against plates as a few crew members looked his way. Some smiled knowingly. Others whispered, what now? He muttered, placing his tray back. Sector 7 was not a place you wanted to be summoned. It was where the bureaucrats worked. The officers who loved paperwork, who thrived on rules, who believed freedom was dangerous. He marched down the metallic corridor, boots echoing against steel. When the door slid open, he found a cold, square office with glowing panels along the walls. Behind a desk sat Administrator Kell, a thin man with pale skin and a voice as sharp as broken glass. Lieutenant Ven, Kell said. Sit. Arik sat tense. You are aware of the Galactic Union's recent initiative, yes? Arik frowned. What initiative? Kell's lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. The Cultural Pairing Program, a joint experiment to strengthen interspecies cooperation. Each chosen officer will be partnered with a representative from another civilization. Together you will live, train, and serve. Bonds of peace are built through personal ties. Arik felt his stomach twist. You're saying assigned partners? Exactly. Kell pressed a button on the desk. And, Lieutenant, you've been selected. Arik's eyes widened. He had joined the fleet to avoid being tied down. And now the Union wanted to tie him tighter than ever before. Wait, he said, trying to keep his voice calm. You can't just assign me someone. I didn't ask for this. I don't want. The door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. Arik turned and the words caught in his throat. She stepped in. She was small compared to most crew members, barely reaching his shoulder. Her skin shimmered with faint silver light, glowing softly under the office lamps. Delicate patterns of bioluminescence ran across her arms, shifting like moving water. Her eyes were wide, not human, glowing faintly violet. She looked calm, composed, but there was a kind of quiet strength in her posture. Lieutenant Arik Ven, Kell said with obvious satisfaction. Meet Lyra of the Doreen, Arik blinked. You've got to be kidding me. Lyra bowed slightly, her voice melodic but firm. It is an honor. We are bonded now. Bonded? Arik repeated, nearly choking. Kell's thin smile widened. Yes. According to the program, she is your assigned partner. Or, as the Doreen culture calls it, your life companion. Arik shot to his feet. Life companion? You mean? Kell folded his hands. Exactly. Your petite alien wife, Lieutenant. Congratulations. For a long moment, Arik could only stare. His dream of freedom had been shattered in a single announcement. He had fled Earth to escape arranged bonds, and now the stars had played a cruel joke on him. He looked at Lyra. She didn't look angry. She didn't look smug. She looked patient, as though she expected his resistance. This isn't happening, Arik muttered, pacing the office. I didn't agree to this. I didn't sign up for— You signed up for the Union, Kell interrupted sharply. You follow orders. Refusal is not an option. Arik clenched his fists but said nothing. Kell stood, clearly pleased with himself. Lyra will move into your quarters today. You will train together, eat together, learn together. Dismissed. The meeting ended with cold efficiency. Arik stormed out of the office, his thoughts boiling. Lyra walked behind him silently. her footsteps so light they barely touched the floor. When they reached his quarters, he finally turned on her. "You don't have to go along with this." "You can tell them no," she tilted her head. "Why would I say no?" "Because this is insane," he snapped. "I wanted freedom. I wanted my own life. I didn't come out here to be assigned a—" He stopped himself before finishing the word. Lyra's eyes glimmered faintly, and her voice was calm. "On my world, this bond is sacred. To us, it is not a burden. It is honor," Arik groaned, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, well, on my world, it's a cage." For the first time, Lyra's expression shifted. Not anger, not offense. Something else, curiosity. "Then perhaps," she said softly, "we will learn what freedom truly means. Together." The days that followed were a blur of awkwardness. Lyra moved into his quarters with a small case of belongings. She placed strange glowing stones on the shelf, calling them memory lights. She rearranged the chairs so they faced each other, explaining that Doreen companions always sit where they can see the other's eyes. She spoke in soft tones, precise and formal, as though every word carried weight. Arik, meanwhile, did his best to ignore her. He worked double shifts, ate quickly, and pretended she wasn't there. But she was always there, watching, waiting. He began to notice things he hadn't before. The way her skin glowed brighter when she was curious. The way her eyes narrowed when she concentrated. The way she moved, silent, graceful, as if the air itself made space for her. And despite himself, he realized something troubling. She wasn't weak. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't just assigned. There was more to Lyra than he wanted to admit. One evening, as he returned from a long patrol, he found her seated cross-legged on the floor, staring at the glowing stones. "What are you doing?" he asked, tired. "Listening," she said simply. "Listening to what?" "The stones hold echoes of our ancestors. When we quiet ourselves, we hear their wisdom." Arik rubbed his forehead. "Right, of course." He dropped onto his bunk, exhausted. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Lyra spoke again. "You fear me," she said softly. Arik sat up. "What? No, I don't fear you." Her violet eyes met his. "You fear what I represent. A bond you did not choose." Arik's jaw tightened. She was right, and he hated that she was right. "I don't want chains," he said quietly. "And I," she replied, "do not want a companion who sees me as a chain." For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside the viewport, stars drifted past, cold and silent. Inside the room, something warmer flickered to life. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. Arik sighed, lying back. He still didn't know how he was going to handle this assignment. He still wanted freedom, but for the first time he wondered if maybe, just maybe, freedom wasn't about being alone. Maybe it was about choosing how to face the unexpected. And Lyra, whether he liked it or not, was very unexpected. The station never slept. Lights glowed in endless corridors. Machines hummed behind bulkheads, and voices of many species mixed together in dozens of languages. To most, it was a living city drifting in the stars. To Lieutenant Arik Venn, it was a cage of rules and duties. And now, with Lyra following him everywhere, it felt smaller than ever. A week had passed since the assignment. Arik tried everything to create distance. He walked faster through the halls, left early for his patrols, and spoke as little as possible. Yet no matter where he went, Lyra was there. She was quiet, yes, but not invisible. Her silver glow always drew glances. People whispered, "That's the human with the Doreen companion. They're one of the first pairs." Arik hated the attention. That morning he stormed into the hangar, jaw tight. He had a simple patrol mission. Check the outer perimeter, scan for pirate signals, return. Normally it was the kind of mission he enjoyed. Silence, stars, and no bureaucracy. But as he climbed into his small scout ship, he saw her already seated in the co-pilot's chair. He stopped at the hatch. "What are you doing here?" Lyra looked at him calmly, hands folded on her lap. "The program requires shared experience. Where you go, I go. This is my mission," Arik said firmly. "Not yours." Her violet eyes blinked slowly. "If you fail, I fail. We are bonded." "That is the rule," Arik groaned. "Always rules. Always someone telling me what to do." He considered ordering her out, but one thing he had already learned about Lyra was that she did not bend easily. She looked small, yes, but her presence was firm as stone. With a frustrated shake of his head, he climbed into the pilot's seat. "Fine. But don't touch anything. Lyra inclined her head. As you wish. The ship detached from the hangar and drifted into open space. Stars stretched endlessly ahead, cold and sharp against the black. For a while, neither spoke. Arik focused on the controls, enjoying the familiar comfort of his ship. But silence did not last. You breathe heavily when you are angry, Lyra observed suddenly. Arik shot her a look. Excuse me? It is not a criticism, she said calmly. It is an observation. You seek freedom, yet anger chains you tighter than rules. Arik tightened his grip on the controls. And you talk too much for someone who claims to be just observing. Her glowing skin brightened faintly as though amused. Perhaps. The silence returned, thicker this time. Arik sighed. Why did she have to speak in riddles? He wanted simple answers, not philosophy. He wanted a patrol without conversation. But fate did not give him what he wanted. 2 hours into their patrol, alarms lit up on the console. Red lights blinked and the screen flashed an incoming signal. Arik cursed under his breath. Pirates, he muttered. A small fleet of raider ships appeared on the scanner, closing fast. They weren't supposed to be here. This zone was meant to be secure. Arik tightened his harness and gripped the flight stick. Hold on, the raiders fired first. Beams of light shot across space, grazing the scout ship's shields. The hull shuddered violently. Arik spun the ship into a dive, weaving between asteroid fragments. Lyra clutched the sides of her chair but did not scream. Instead, she spoke quickly, her voice steady. They are targeting our engines. Their pattern is precise. They want us alive. Arik gritted his teeth. Alive for what? Prisoners. Or worse. The raiders closed in, forming a pincer. Arik swore and slammed the thrusters. The ship jerked, but one raider's shot clipped their wing, throwing sparks across the cabin. Shields at 30%. The computer warned. Arik cursed again. We can't outrun them. Lyra leaned forward, her glowing skin flickering rapidly. Her violet eyes focused on the console. Wait, their transmissions, do you hear them? Arik frowned. I don't have time to give me access to the comms, she demanded, sharper than before. Arik blinked at her tone. It was the first time she had spoken with command. Something in her voice told him to trust her. He flipped the switch. Lyra closed her eyes, hands dancing over the alien symbols faster than Arik thought possible. Her glow pulsed with each movement. Suddenly, the ship's speakers filled with strange static. Alien voices, harsh and rapid. They are arguing, Lyra whispered. One ship wants to retreat. Another demands capture. They are not united. Arik's mind raced. Can you tell which one is giving orders? She nodded slowly, still listening. The flagship. The one on our left. Arik grinned, despite the danger. Perfect. Time to cut off the head. He yanked the controls, spinning the ship toward the left raider. Weapon systems locked, and he fired 2 plasma bursts straight into the flagship's nose. The shot pierced its shield, erupting in a small explosion. The raider fleet faltered. Confusion spread through their ranks. Half turned to cover their damaged leader, while the others scattered. Arik seized the moment, diving through the gap and blasting full speed away. The scout ship groaned under the strain, but the distance widened. Soon the raiders faded from the scanner. Breathing hard, Arik slumped back in his seat. We're alive. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, her glow dimming. Because we worked together. Arik glanced at her, still catching his breath. He hated to admit it, but she was right. Without her, he never would have known which ship to hit. He sighed. Fine, you were useful. Her lips curved slightly. A high compliment from a human who wanted me gone. Arik rolled his eyes. Don't push your luck. They limped back to the station, the ship smoking and battered. Engineers rushed to meet them, shocked by the damage. Reports were filed, questions asked, and soon Arik found himself back in Administrator Kell's office. Kell's pale eyes narrowed as Arik explained the attack. Pirates this deep in Union space? Impossible. Arik crossed his arms. I saw them with my own eyes. Kell tapped his fingers on the desk, unconvinced. Your word is not evidence. Do you have recordings? Arik hesitated. The ship's logs had been damaged in the firefight. What little remained was scrambled. Before he could answer, Lyra stepped forward. I heard their transmissions. They were not random raiders. They were organized. They knew our patrol routes. Someone fed them information. Kell turned his gaze on her. And you claim this based on, what, your alien senses? Her glow dimmed slightly, but her voice remained calm. Yes, Kell scoffed. Unreliable. Arik slammed his hands on the desk. She saved my life out there. Without her, I'd be dead. Maybe you don't like this program administrator, but don't you dare dismiss her. Kel's thin smile returned. Interesting. Already defending your wife, Lieutenant? Arik's face heated. She's not, Kel waved a hand. Enough, you will continue your assignments as planned. If pirates return, provide proof next time, dismissed. The two left the office in silence. In the corridor, Arik muttered, I hate that man. Lyra walked beside him, her glow faint but steady. He does not hate you. He fears what he cannot control. Arik glanced at her. And what about you? Do you think you can control me too? Her eyes met his, calm and unshaken. No, but I can walk beside you. That night, Arik sat on his bunk, staring out the viewport. Stars drifted slowly beyond the glass, silent and eternal. Lyra sat across from him, studying one of her glowing memory stones. Finally, he spoke. Back there. In the fight. You didn't panic. She looked up. Why would I panic? Panic blinds. Come sees, Arik nodded slowly. You've done this before, haven't you? More than just a companion. She said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. Arik leaned back, exhaling. For the first time since the assignment, he felt something shift inside him. Not acceptance, not trust, not yet. But respect. Maybe she wasn't just an unwanted chain. Maybe she was something else. Something dangerous, something valuable. And deep down, a thought flickered like a spark in the dark. Maybe I needed her more than I wanted to admit. The days after the pirate attack were not quiet. On the surface, the station returned to its routines. Ships came and went, traders filled the markets, and officers marched through halls with their usual discipline. But beneath it all, whispers spread. Rumors about the raid drifted through the mess hall, the hangars, even the dormitories. Some said the pirates were only scavengers who got lucky. Others believed they had inside help. No one spoke too loudly, because on a station full of spies and politics, whispers carried far. Arik tried to bury himself in work. He ran extra patrols, repaired damaged systems, and spent hours in the simulator. He told himself it was because he loved flying. But deep down, he knew the truth. He was avoiding questions. He was avoiding her, Lyra. Everywhere he went, she was there. She followed him to the mess hall, to the training bays, even to the simulator pods. She never complained, never argued, and never looked bored. Instead, she watched, listened, and learned. At first, her presence irritated him. But slowly, something shifted. He began to notice her skills. Not just her strange ability to read alien signals, but the way she could see patterns others missed. In the simulator, she pointed out flaws in enemy tactics before the computer even revealed them. In the hangar, she caught a loose coupling that engineers had overlooked, and she never bragged. She only said, "It is my duty as your companion." Arik wanted to argue, to tell her again that he hadn't chosen this bond. But after the raid, his protests felt weaker. One evening, Arik was in the data library scrolling through ship logs. He was searching for something, anything that could prove the pirates' attack wasn't random. Lyra appeared at his side, silent as always. Still chasing ghosts? Arik didn't look up. Call it what you want, but I know what I saw. They knew our patrol route. Someone gave them that information. Her violet eyes flickered with faint light. You are right. The question is who? Arik frowned at her tone. You sound like you already suspect someone. I suspect many, she replied calmly. But suspicion is not proof. We must look deeper. Arik leaned back, rubbing his eyes. Easier said than done. Most of these logs are encrypted. Only High Command has clearance. Lyra placed her glowing hand on the console. For a moment, the screen flickered. Lines of encrypted code shifted and bent as if reacting to her touch. Arik stared. What are you doing? Listening, she said softly. Within seconds, the encryption melted away, revealing hidden files. Arik's jaw dropped. How did you? She turned her head slightly. The Doreen are trained to hear what machines hide. Our glow is not decoration, Lieutenant. It is connection. Energy speaks if you know how to listen, Arik exhaled. He didn't fully understand, but he wasn't about to argue. All right. What do we have? Together, they scrolled through the files. What they found made Arik's blood run cold. There were detailed reports of patrol routes, maintenance schedules, even personal profiles of officers, all marked with strange alien symbols. And many of those files had been accessed recently by someone inside the station. Someone's feeding them intel, Arik whispered. Lyra nodded. And not just anyone, look. She pointed to a record showing the last access location. Sector 7, Arik's fist clenched. Administration, Kel. The next morning, Arik tried to act normal. He went to his duties, checked his ship, and pretended nothing was wrong. But inside, his mind raced. If Kel was feeding information to the raiders, the danger was bigger than he imagined. And if the cultural pairing program was connected, he glanced at Lyra, who walked beside him with calm steps. She didn't look worried, but her glow was faint, almost hidden. He wondered if that was her way of staying alert. During lunch, Arik leaned closer. We need proof. Something solid. If we accuse Kel without it, we're finished. Lyra's voice was quiet. Proof lies where secrets sleep. And secrets sleep in places no one wishes to look. Arik groaned. Can you ever just say things simply? She tilted her head. Simplicity hides truth. Complexity reveals it, he rolled his eyes. Great. My wife is a philosopher. But later that night, when the station's lights dimmed for rest cycles, he followed her advice. Together, they slipped into the maintenance shafts, crawling through narrow passages where no cameras reached. Lyra led the way, her glow faint enough to light the path without drawing attention. Arik followed, his pulse quickening with each step. They reached a sealed hatch near Sector 7. Lyra pressed her hand to the panel. The lock hissed, then clicked open. Inside was a small room filled with data cores blinking faintly. Arik's eyes widened. This is it. They hurried to the consoles, scanning files. One by one, they found transmissions sent from the station to unknown coordinates. Encrypted signals time-stamped to match the pirates' movements. Arik's heart pounded. This is the proof. Kel's been feeding them. But before they could copy the data, alarms blared. Red lights flooded the room. Unauthorized access detected, the computer voice announced. Arik cursed. We've been caught. The hatch behind them slid open and armed security officers poured in. Lieutenant Venn, Lyra of the Doreen, step away from the console. Arik's stomach dropped. They were surrounded. Dragged into an interrogation chamber, Arik slammed his fists on the table. You don't understand, we found proof. Kel's working with the raiders. The officer across from him didn't blink. The evidence shows you accessed restricted files. That makes you the traitor. Arik's jaw tightened. That's insane. Beside him, Lyra sat calmly, her hands folded. The truth will surface. It always does, the officer sneered. Not before you're court-martialed. Arik opened his mouth to argue, but the door slid open. Administrator Kel stepped in, his thin smile sharp as ever. Well, well, Kel said smoothly. The model pilot and his exotic companion. Snooping where they don't belong, Arik shot to his feet. You set us up. Kel's eyes gleamed. Big words from someone facing treason charges. Do you know the penalty for espionage, Lieutenant? Arik clenched his fists. Do you know the penalty for betraying the Union? For the first time, Kel's smile faltered, but only for a moment. He turned to the officer. Lock them up. We'll sort this out quietly. The officer saluted. Yes, sir. As Arik and Lyra were dragged away, Arik's mind raced. They had proof but no way to show it. And now they were prisoners in the very station they had sworn to protect. Locked in a small holding cell, Arik paced like a caged animal. This is it. My career's finished. We're finished. Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, glowing faintly. Not finished. Only beginning, Arik spun on her.
How can you be so calm?
Kel just turned the whole Union against us. Her violet eyes met his. Because panic blinds, ComSees. You learned this already. Arik froze, remembering the pirate fight. She had been right then. Was she right now? He dropped onto the bench, burying his face in his hands. I just wanted freedom. That's all. But every time I think I've found it, someone pulls the chain tighter. Lyra studied him quietly. After a long pause, she said, Perhaps freedom is not the absence of chains. Perhaps it is choosing which bonds you honor. Arik lifted his head, staring at her. He didn't understand completely. But part of him wondered if she was right. Before he could reply, the cell door hissed open. 2 guards stood there, weapons ready. You're being transferred, one said. Arik frowned. Transferred where? The guard didn't answer. Lyra stood gracefully, her glow brightening. As they stepped into the corridor, Arik noticed something strange. The guards weren't Union security. Their armor was wrong, older, patched, with strange markings. His stomach twisted. These weren't guards. They were raiders. As the guards marched them down the dim corridor, Auric glanced at Lyra. Her eyes narrowed, her glow flickering in warning. She had noticed too. Without speaking, Auric shifted his weight ready. When the first guard pushed him forward, Auric spun, slamming his shoulder into the man's chest. The second raised his weapon, but Lyra moved faster. Her small frame blurred, her glowing hand striking the guard's wrist. The weapon clattered to the floor. Auric grabbed it and fired. The first guard dropped instantly. The second stumbled back, stunned. Breathing hard, Auric turned to Lyra. "How did you—" She didn't answer. She only said, "Run." Together they sprinted through the corridor, alarms blaring behind them. The station was no longer safe. They were fugitives now, hunted by both pirates and their own union. And as they fled, Auric realized something terrifying. The cultural pairing program wasn't just about peace. It was about power, and he and Lyra were caught in the center of a conspiracy much larger than either of them had imagined. The small craft cut silently through the dark void of space, its engines humming softly as Auric and Lyra sat together in the cockpit. Neither spoke at first. The weight of what they had just discovered hung between them like heavy chains. The Galactic Union's leaders were blind. The warlords were preparing to strike, and both of them had been branded as fugitives. Auric leaned back in his seat, running a tired hand across his face. "We can't keep running forever," he muttered. His voice was low, almost defeated, though the fire in his eyes still burned. Lyra, seated beside him, tilted her head slightly. The bioluminescent glow across her temples pulsed softly, reflecting her emotions. "You are correct," she replied calmly. "But we cannot face them head-on, not yet. Our bond has given us an advantage, but it is not enough to challenge a fleet. Their bond." Auric still found it strange. This telepathic link they had activated. It was like a hidden channel had opened between them. He could feel her presence in his mind, not as an intrusive voice, but as a subtle awareness. Her focus, her emotions, her instincts, and sometimes flashes of thought like faint sparks of understanding. It was both unsettling and strangely comforting. He shook his head. "I signed up for freedom, to escape orders, rules, chains. And now," he gave a short laugh, "now I'm tied to you, running from both sides of the war." Lyra's eyes softened, though her voice remained even. "You are not chained. A link does not enslave, it connects. Together we are stronger, and together perhaps we can stop what is coming." Auric met her gaze. For once there was no irritation, no sarcasm, just quiet understanding. He gave a short nod. The plan they spent hours sketching possibilities. Lyra projected star maps across the console, her slender fingers tracing glowing patterns. "The warlord's fleet is hidden in this nebula," she explained, her voice steady. "It is a good place for them. The gases scramble long-range sensors. Few ships risk entering it." Auric leaned forward, his mind already racing with tactics. "If they're hiding there, then their command ship must be in the center. Take out their communications hub and they'll be blind scattered." "Agreed," Lyra said. She paused, her glowing markings dimming slightly. "But infiltration will be dangerous. Their defenses will be heavy." Auric smirked. "Dangerous? That's my specialty." For the first time since they had met, Lyra let out a small laugh, a delicate sound, surprising even to herself. Into the nebula, their small craft entered the nebula, light bending in strange colors around them. Swirls of violet gas shimmered against the darkness, broken by sudden flashes of charged particles. The ship trembled as it pushed deeper inside. Auric gripped the controls firmly. "This place is a graveyard waiting to happen," he muttered. Lyra closed her eyes, her glow brightening. "The gases interfere with sensors, but not with me. I can sense distortions, energy fields, pathways." Through their link, Auric suddenly felt what she meant. His mind brushed against hers, and in an instant he saw faint trails, safe routes through the storm, hidden currents of space. "All right," he said, amazed. "You guide, I'll fly." With her directing him, they weaved through dangers that would have destroyed any normal pilot. Together they avoided plasma storms, navigated unstable magnetic fields, and slowly approached the heart of the nebula, and there it was, the warlord's flagship. The enemy stronghold, it was massive, a dark fortress floating in the mist. Spires of metal rose like jagged teeth, glowing with alien energy. Around it swarmed dozens of warships patrolling like hungry predators. Auric whistled softly. That's not a fleet. That's a moving planet. Size does not mean invulnerability, Lyra whispered. Her eyes narrowed, her glow intensifying. Their strength is also their weakness. Too many systems. Too much reliance on coordination. If we strike at the core, Arik grinned, then the whole monster falls apart. Infiltration, they cloaked their small ship and latched onto the flagship's outer hull. Wearing dark suits, they slipped inside through a maintenance hatch. The corridors were vast, built for a species much taller and bulkier than humans or Doreen. Shadows stretched across metallic walls and the distant thrum of reactors echoed through the air. Arik whispered, "Feels like walking through the belly of a beast." Lyra's glow dimmed almost completely. "Stay focused." Using their bond, they moved with uncanny coordination. When Arik turned a corner, Lyra was already there. When Lyra sensed danger, Arik reacted before she even spoke. It was as if they shared instincts. Not just thoughts. They slipped past patrols, hacked into control panels, and descended deeper into the ship. Finally, they reached it, the communication core. A colossal chamber pulsing with energy, alive with alien machinery. Streams of light flowed like rivers, carrying signals across the fleet. "This is it," Lyra whispered. Arik pulled out a compact explosive device. "Let's give them a surprise they won't forget." The turning point, just as they prepared the charges, alarms blared. Red light flooded the chamber. Intruders detected. The alien voice echoed through the ship. Dozens of armored guards stormed in, weapons raised. Arik swore under his breath. "We're surrounded." Lyra closed her eyes, her glow flaring. "Trust me," her thought brushed across his mind. And suddenly they moved as one. Arik raised his blaster, firing precise shots while Lyra darted forward, her movements impossibly fast. She redirected enemy fire with a device on her wrist while Arik covered her from behind. Their bond allowed them to anticipate each other perfectly. He knew where she would step before she moved. She felt where he would shoot before he aimed. The guards fell, one by one. Smoke filled the chamber. Arik grinned breathlessly. "Not bad for a team-up." Lyra gave a small nod. "We are not done yet." The escape, they armed the charges and sprinted back through the corridors as alarms howled. Explosions echoed behind them, shaking the ship violently. Through the link, Arik felt Lyra's determination pushing him forward, even when his legs burned with exhaustion. She felt his raw courage steadying her, even as danger pressed close. At last, they reached their ship and launched away just as the flagship shuddered from within. The communication core erupted in a massive blast, sending shockwaves across the nebula. The surrounding warships faltered, their signals broken, their formation collapsing. Confusion spread through the enemy fleet. Arik whooped. "We did it!" But Lyra's expression remained serious. "We have dealt a blow, but they will recover. We must take this evidence to the Union before it is too late." A new understanding as the nebula faded behind them. Silence filled the cockpit. Arik leaned back, staring at the stars. For the first time he felt free, not because he was alone, but because he wasn't. He turned to Lyra. "You know, when I was assigned to you, I thought it was a curse. Chains, rules all over again. But now," he paused, searching for the right words. "Now I think it might have been the best thing that ever happened." Lyra studied him quietly. Then slowly, a warm light spread across her markings. "Perhaps freedom is not the absence of bonds," she said softly. "Perhaps it is choosing the right ones." Their eyes met, and though no words passed, their bond said everything. Together, they turned their ship toward Union space, ready for the final battle. The ship cut across the dark expanse of space, carrying Arik and Lyra toward Union territory. Behind them, the nebula still glowed faintly, the wreckage of the warlord's flagship hidden inside like a wounded beast. Arik sat in the cockpit, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. His muscles ached and exhaustion weighed on him, but his mind refused to rest. The mission was not over. Destroying the communications hub had slowed the enemy, but it had not ended the threat. Beside him, Lyra adjusted the navigation controls. Her glow was dim, almost subdued. For the first time since they met, she looked uncertain. "You are worried," Arik said, noticing her silence. She glanced at him, then lowered her eyes. "The Union may not believe us. We are fugitives in their records. If they reject the evidence, the warlords will strike unchecked." Arik clenched his jaw. He hated the truth of her words. Still, he forced a grin. Then we'll just have to make them believe. One way or another. Lyra studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Through their bond, Arik felt a quiet strength rising in her again. Arrival at Union Command Union. Space came into view. A cluster of defense platforms orbiting a massive station known as Haven Prime. It was the heart of the Galactic Union, a floating city of glass and steel, shining like a beacon in the dark. As their small ship approached, alarms rang out. Union patrol craft swarmed to intercept. "This is Haven Prime Security," a voice crackled over comms. "Unidentified vessel, power down your engines and prepare for boarding." Arik muttered under his breath. "Great, exactly the welcome I was expecting." Lyra's glow pulsed faintly. "Let them board. We have nothing to hide." Moments later, armored officers stormed aboard, weapons raised. Arik lifted his hands slowly. Lyra did the same, calm as ever. They were escorted into the grand chamber of Union High Command. Massive pillars lined the room, and at its center sat the Council of 12, leaders from across the galaxy. Their eyes bore into Arik and Lyra as if measuring their worth, the trial of words. "You are fugitives," one counselor declared. "You infiltrated restricted zones, stole a Union vessel, and attacked Allied ships. Why should we not imprison you?" Arik bristled. "Because while you sit here arguing over rules, the warlords are preparing to tear the galaxy apart." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Another counselor raised a hand. "You bring serious claims, human. Do you have proof?" Lyra stepped forward. With a flick of her wrist, she activated a small device, projecting recordings from the flagship, the intercepted transmissions, the warlords' plans, the images of the vast hidden fleet. Gasps filled the room. Some counselors leaned forward in shock. Others scowled in disbelief. "This could be fabricated," one hissed. Arik slammed his fist on the table. "You think we risked our lives sneaking into a death trap just to trick you? You've seen what they're capable of. If you don't act, you'll lose everything." Silence followed. Finally, the oldest counselor spoke, her voice heavy with gravity. "Whether true or false, if the warlords are indeed moving, we cannot wait. A strike must be prepared." Arik's shoulders sagged in relief. For the first time, it seemed the Union might finally listen. The warlords' counterstrike. But hope was short-lived. Even as the council debated, alarms blared across Haven Prime. Reports poured in. The warlords had launched their fleet early. Vast armadas burst out of the nebula, sweeping into Union space like a storm. "They've moved faster than expected," Lyra whispered. Arik's jaw tightened. "Then we don't wait for orders. We fight." The council hesitated, caught in their own politics, but Arik and Lyra didn't. They raced back to their ship. Preparing for battle in the hangar, pilots and soldiers scrambled. Ships launched in waves, forming a desperate defense. Arik and Lyra climbed aboard their vessel, the same small craft that had carried them through the nebula. Against an entire fleet? Arik muttered, strapping in. "We're insane." Lyra's glow brightened, fierce and steady. Insane, perhaps, but not powerless. As their ship roared into space, the bond between them pulsed stronger than ever. Arik felt her focus sharpen his reflexes. She felt his courage steady her heart. They were no longer two beings, they were one will, one purpose. The Battle of Haven Prime. The sky lit with fire as the warlords' ships clashed with Union defenders. Explosions flared across the void. Fighters weaved between massive cruisers, beams of energy tearing through metal. Arik gripped the controls, weaving their small craft through chaos. "They'll crush us with numbers unless we cut the head off the beast." "The command ship," Lyra agreed instantly. She pointed through the haze. There. Through drifting wreckage, the enemy flagship loomed, larger even than the one they had infiltrated. Its weapons carved through Union lines, unstoppable. Arik's eyes hardened. "Then that's our target." Into the fire, they dove into the fray, dodging enemy fire with impossible precision. Arik's instincts guided the ship, while Lyra's awareness warned him of dangers before they appeared. Enemy fighters swarmed them. Arik looped through debris, blasting two from the sky. Lyra rerouted power, shielding them from a direct hit. "Hold steady," she whispered into his mind. "Always," he replied. Together, they broke through the chaos and raced straight toward the flagship. The final gambit, the flagship's defenses locked onto them. Turrets unleashed waves of fire. One hit sent their ship spinning, alarms shrieking. Arik cursed, struggling with the controls. We won't make it through. Lyra's glow blazed brighter than ever. We will. Trust me. Through their bond, she poured her focus into him. Suddenly, the battlefield slowed in his mind. Every shot, every movement of the enemy became clear. Guided by her presence, Auric flew like never before, weaving through fire as if space itself bent to his will. They slammed into the flagship's outer hull, cutting inside with a desperate maneuver. Sparks flew as metal screeched around them. The ship groaned but held. Breathing hard, Auric looked at Lyra. All right, one last dance, she nodded. Together, the heart of the beast, they fought their way through corridors swarming with guards, every step fueled by their link. Auric's blaster cleared the way, while Lyra's swift strikes disabled enemies before they could react. Finally, they reached the command chamber. The warlord leader, a towering alien with jagged armor, turned to face them. His voice rumbled like thunder. Humans. Doreen. Weak species clinging to a failing union. You cannot stop us. Auric leveled his blaster. Funny. People keep telling me what I can't do. I'm still here. The warlord roared and charged. The battle was brutal. Metal clashed, energy flared, and the chamber shook with each strike. But Auric and Lyra fought as one, their bond turning them into something more than mortal. At last they struck together, Auric blasting the warlord's armor open, Lyra driving her energy blade into the core. The leader collapsed, defeated. Victory and choice with their leader fallen, the flagship's coordination faltered. Union forces pressed the advantage, scattering the remaining fleet. Cheers echoed across comms as the tide turned. Auric and Lyra staggered back to their ship, exhausted but alive. As they launched away from the crippled flagship, the Union's voice filled the air. To all forces, enemy retreat confirmed. Haven Prime is secure. Relief washed over Auric. For the first time, he allowed himself to breathe. Back at Haven Prime, the Council greeted them not as fugitives, but as heroes. Offers of rank, wealth, and command poured in. But when asked what reward he wanted, Auric only shook his head. I didn't fight for medals. I fought because someone had to. Because we had to. Lyra stood beside him, her glow warm and steady. We choose our own path. A New Horizon days later, Auric and Lyra stood on the bridge of a new vessel, gifted to them as a symbol of gratitude. The stars stretched endlessly before them, Auric smirked. So where to now, partner? Lyra tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with quiet light. Wherever freedom calls us. For a moment they stood in silence, sharing the bond that had carried them through fire and storm. Not assignment, not duty, a choice. Together they set their course into the unknown, two souls, one bond, and a galaxy waiting to be explored. And as the engines roared to life, Auric finally understood. Freedom was never about running away from ties. It was about finding the one connection worth keeping.